on my mind. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of The Boxing Show with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am joined by the usual twosome of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke as we review a packed weekend of action this past weekend. How we doing, chaps?
Yeah, good.
Good stuff, Barry.
Yeah,
I was just about to go.
Yes.
Just opening up. He's always so immediately defensive for any show of warmth.
It's because you're a prick.
Thanks, terrible. How was your weekend?
It was
Barry?
good, actually. Really good. Yeah, really good weekend. Lots of boxing again, which is always a good thing.
You're over in Dublin.
I was. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. Like unbelievable atmosphere. Really well. I mean, I think my ears popped. It was that bad. Not that good. Yeah. There you go.
How about you, Barry? Andy, what were you doing this past weekend? Were you not at a show on Saturday night? No.
I had a quiet weekend. But yeah, watched the boxing from Dublin on Saturday night, and other than that, just kind of tried my best not to lose my patience with a screaming baby.
And that's his newborn, not Barry. That's
social services, just to keep an eye on a little flag there, maybe.
We do have a lot to get through, and also a couple of shows this weekend as well. So we will try and get a move on. We'll start quickly on Friday night with Mark Chamberlain, with I think probably a harder than potentially expected stoppage win in the 10th round over Ramlavs. I forgot his first name. It's been a long weekend. Barry, going to come to you first. Mark Chamberlain got there in the end in what was a pretty entertaining fight.
It's a hard fight, but it's a really good learning fight for him, I think. You want to be careful pushing someone too soon. I think that's a little bit of a marker maybe for him, just to just keep aware of where his next step is. But in a tough fight, he still got the finish. I took him to the last round, and that's good. And the way he got the finish was good. Kept it nice and long, punched clean, and I think that that last little barrage, I don't think he missed with a shot. So, that's not a bad performance. I think for his development, it'll help him. Because there's loads of things, like I say this all the time, don't I, just for every fight. But, I mean, there's loads of things for them to dissect there, good and bad, as well. So, it was a really good, hard learning fight, which you sort of need in your career.
Yeah. Andy, Barry's just mentioned there about what could potentially come next. It feels like a long time now. We've been talking about the Sam Noakes fight. Of course, two unbeaten lightweight prospects within the Queensberry stable. Do you think we're any closer to that? Do you think that's something that you can see them sort of building parallel to each other?
Traditionally, promoters kind of avoid that sort of fight, don't they? Although maybe they will do it because they've got good fan bases, a pair of them, particularly Noakes. I found myself in the middle of a load of Noakes fans just before Christmas. God, it's so long ago now, 2019. I bought a ticket off Louis Lynn, and Noakes was boxing kind of mid-afternoon, as Louis Lynn was as well, and I took my wife down there, and I'm not sure she was really that appreciative of it, to be honest, because you're just surrounded by people who are like 4:30 in the afternoon were full of Christmas cheer. But it was impressive. He's got a very, very solid fan base behind him. So that could be a really good fight night if they put that top of a bill. It could be really, really good. I think those York Hall shows for Queensberry are working, aren't they? They've got a kind of tier system in place at the minute. It would appear with, Saudi's this fairly recent thing, but that's the kind of top tier. Then the bigger venue shows, domestic shows, and then York Hall Friday nights, where they're using that as a good vehicle to get boxers the kind of fights they need for their development and progress, but also some good fights top of the bill as well, some good competitive fights.
And an easier venue to fill. It might be ticket sales might not be great for Queensberry financially, but they've got the TV money and they're not paying fortunes for the bill, let's be honest. So they're probably gaining loads on that. But more importantly, it gives a good atmosphere. So, I mean, for watching at home, it helps. It does help. But certainly being there, and certainly for the fighters, all down the bill, it helps because it gets filled it gets busy quite quickly, doesn't it, in the York Hall?
Exactly.
So rather than put in a massive indoor arena, which is going to be half empty, even come like 10 o'clock, or Queen Street Chase 11:30 for the top of the bill. I'm joking. No, by the time it gets to the top of the bill, it's still going to be half full. And I mean, all promoters are guilty of that.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you got to cater to what you got, and I think they might have sold more tickets maybe, but it gives a really good enclosed atmosphere, and the York Hall is the best for that. I think Sam Noakes, if he puts on a really good performance Friday, I think he fights and Gavin Gwynn wins. They've signed Gavin Gwynn for Noakes or Chamberlain. That's what they've signed him for. I mean, he'd probably be aware of that, Gavin Gwynn. They've signed him for that because he's a British champion. He get a European title shot, and if he wins that, then one of those will fight him before they fight each other.
That makes sense.
Guaranteed.
It makes sense. Would be a risk though. We've seen Gavin Gwynn's got plenty left.
But I think they're looking for marketing their fighters. I think that'll be the way they go. They're investing more in them two than they are in Gavin. Well, most definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But Gavin's a tough test for anybody. There's a potential there that they walk away with egg on their face.
Absolutely, yeah. He looked very, very good in the Craig Woodruff rematch.
Yeah.
But as good as he's ever been. Before we move on, as I mentioned, we do have a packed weekend to get through. Just on that Mark Chamberlain, Sam Noakes fight, who are we picking at this moment in time if they were to box next?
I don't know, and that's what makes it good.
Actually, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
There you go. Thanks for your answer.
I was going to say, follow Boxing News for further insight.
But what Barry was saying about the venue and packing the venue out.
We love that on here, don't we? We talk about it fairly regularly.
We talked about it a lot, and I do feel like there's been a bit of a movement towards that. I think promoters are clearly watching this, and just like soaking up the wisdom that's being transmitted.
I wouldn't get in the
and it's permeating through a kind of like osmotic process, and realising that we're right.
How am I supposed to know what that means? That's ridiculous. Well, no, hang on a minute. Why would you if this is a podcast for boxing people, there might be loads of intelligent people there. But if most of them are from my background, boxing people is a working class sport, I would say. Well, I didn't know what you said. It's just making words up, no?
We could actually do that. We should try and do that at the start of this pod.
What do you mean we?
I reckon we could sneak a few made up words past.
You got a thesaurus in your beard.
But it's good though, isn't it? It's good, packing out smaller venues and also slightly earlier main event times. Like Katie Taylor, Chantal Cameron was 10:30, wasn't it? Pretty much, which is when you would want it. We had a nice kind of early co-main event times on Sky the other night, and it's just, I like to think that's because people are just soaking up the wisdom, as I say, that's being transmitted osmotically on this podcast.
Yeah. And then you do this on your shingle jangles, and don't forget that.
There we go. So
transmogrify the boglerisation, and then you're there.
They could be genuine things.
So, despite all of that, do we have a pick, Chamberlain versus Noakes, or we just don't know?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure who I'd pick for that.
So we're gun shy now with our picks on the boxing show because we're too used to getting them wrong. But anyway, we're going to move on. But yeah, good little night of action on a Friday night. Always a big fan of bonus nights, as I call them. Anything that's not a Saturday night. So anything Friday, midweek, in the morning, let's go. We're happy with that. Moving on to Saturday night, and we are going to go to Dublin first and start at the main event and work our way down. Katie Taylor gaining revenge by majority decision over Chantal Cameron. Barry becoming a 2-weight undisputed champion in the process. You were there?
I was.
Talk to me about the fight.
Yeah, it was all right. The atmosphere could have been better.
He needed both ears to go.
Oh, mate, it was crazy. It was unbelievable. All night it was really good, I got to be fair. But it was amazing. And a really good fight. It was a really good fight. I think we all get carried away. When we see a really good women's fight, we go, what's the best fight I've ever seen in my entire life? And we all got to go and chill out a bit. It wasn't the best fight I've ever seen in my entire life, but it was brilliant. It was full of drama. A bit scrappy at times, I would argue, to be fair. But, Katie Taylor found energy I didn't think she had anymore. She was faster this time than she'd been for maybe 3 fights. And I didn't think she had that speed in him. I thought with age and the wars. And look, we talk about wars. She's only had 20 fights.
But it's a high level, isn't it?
It is a high level. I mean, it's still a short career relatively. So but she has. I thought there was a bit of a slowing down process with her. But she didn't one day. I think the combinations were fantastic, and I think Chantal Cameron was committed as always. But I mean, me and what's his name, Andy, were talking about it before. Well, Andy was telling me I'm going to nick it now, but she didn't box as good. I don't think tactically she was as good as she should have been. She was nowhere near as good as she was in the first fight. This was a closer fight than the fight. I thought Chantal won the second fight, the first fight more clearly than Katie won this fight. In my mind, watching it, but I had Katie quite a wide winner on my scorecard, which I got loads of praise for. But it was every round. It was 2-minute rounds. Every round is close when it's competitive. It is hard to sometimes pick out what you think. I just thought that Katie Taylor out hustled her, especially in the early rounds. Out hustled her, always finishing with that left hand jab, 3-punch combinations over maybe the harder shots of Chantal Cameron. But then there was that knockdown in the first round, which was clearly a knockdown. I don't understand how that wasn't scored. I maybe didn't. Where I was sat, I couldn't really see the feet, so I'm thinking, well. First, I couldn't see the feet, so I'm like, I'm not watching. I can't see their feet. I thought she must have stood on the foot or something. But the referee so quickly said it's not a knockdown, I thought that maybe the foot got behind, tripped her up, or she stood on the foot. I couldn't see. She was off balance. It wasn't a heavy knockdown. She was off balance, but it was a solid jab that hit it in the chest. Even if it hit you on the gloves, if it hit you over, it's a knockdown. I can't see how it's not. I mean, she didn't just fall over. She went flying, didn't she? They pushed her back. So that maybe would have had a difference in the score, maybe, or the perception, or certainly maybe Chantal's eagerness to want to do more work. But I think she closed the gap too quick, Chantal Cameron. Didn't like last time. She pushed her back with long punches, and she got her to the ropes quick. Now Katie Taylor did really well by making sure she didn't. Later on, she stayed on the ropes, but in the early round, she tried to keep the bigger part of the ring to her back always. So she sort of went around in a circle more than she ever did before. But Chantal wasn't using that jab to push her back enough. And if anything, the first round, the big jab she threw didn't push her back, knocked her back. So I don't know why she didn't do that. That's what won her the fight in the first fight. And I think we said this. Well, Andy told me this. I'm going to nick it again. But she knew how to win in the first because the first fight you think you're going to win. This fight you know you can win, so you want to do better. Is that what you said?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, I don't nick it. No, she knew how to win. And I think she wanted to do better this time, and I think that eagerness to want to do better resulted in you not doing as good. But then you've got to give Katie Taylor credit for having the energy and the work, and it was a close fight, but it was the right winner. I think it was the right winner. I wouldn't have been crying if Chantal would have won. I wouldn't be screaming anything, but I would have felt that Taylor was a little bit unlucky, but at best. But in those close rounds, you can't argue all the judges score it because every round's nip and tuck quite often. But it was brilliant, a brilliant performance from a great athlete who every time you think she doesn't have it in the locker, she finds something else. No, how many times we've said she can't do this again? It's been a lot. Pursuing fights, that's it. No, they're too hard fights. So, against Serrano, just can't do it anymore. Chantal Cameron again after the first fight, I think that's probably done now. She should be looking for a way out. And now you go in, poof. Let's see her in Serrano, and let's see her with Chantal Cameron again, and let's see who else could she move up and box someone else. It was just a fantastic night. I'll say the same thing again for another hour.
That's okay, no problem. Andy, going to come to you if you've got anything left that Barry hasn't stolen and want to share that with us. Just a general open. We're going to hammer down on some of the more specific points.
Stuff,
it was just it was a titanic mental and physical effort by Taylor, and that was enormously impressive. And it just shows you once again why she is a great champion, because that's what they do. They find a way when people don't think they can, and I didn't think she could, because I do think that she's lost a step. But that's what's supposed to happen when you get to your late 30s and you've had a long career. And you're a clean athlete, which I'm as sure as I can be that she is. I almost like to see it because it shows you that they're going about things the right way. It's not a criticism when you see somebody slow down as they get older. It happens to everybody. I agree that I don't think... I think Cameron will have a few regrets about how she went about it. I think she wanted to try and stop her. And while she was trying to do that, Taylor was landing punches. And winning rounds. And yeah, at times she looked a bit ragged and she maybe looked slightly kind of desperate as she really dug in there to keep Cameron off her. And I think if you tuned in at any point really and watched 30 seconds, you'd have come away thinking, well, Taylor's managing to land these punches, but Cameron's going to get her. But she never did, and that was basically how the fight went. I think she did shut her own space down, looking for that kind of combination. But essentially, yeah, if she'd boxed like she did in the first fight, I think she would have given herself a much better chance, because she kept her at the end of that range. But I think she wanted the stoppage.
Yeah.
And she looked like she might be capable of getting it, because she had that confident, mean, aggressive swagger to her. But it just didn't happen. And you see this in fights relatively often, don't you? Well, there is one fighter of the two who looks the bigger, who looks the stronger, who looks the more menacing, the one who is capable of delivering that. But if they don't manage to deliver it, whilst they're not managing to do it, they're getting hit, because they're not that bothered about the punches they're getting hit with, because they've got a mission. But if they don't achieve that mission, then they lose, because just because a punch or punches aren't really affecting you much, they still count. And I just thought, yeah, I mean, Taylor's been she's been amazing, and to become undisputed in 2 weight divisions is a hell of an achievement. And she has had some hard fights. I wasn't really expecting it, I'll be honest. We all picked Cameron to win. We all picked Cameron
quite confidently as well, actually.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to win better. Two things I want to say is, one, that she wants to get out before 3 minutes becomes a norm in women's boxing. I don't think 3 minutes is for her. She tailored her career to 2 minutes. Even 12 rounds might not suit her, actually, even if it was 12-2s. And we have to talk about the holding in the heads, I think, because I was even at the, I know there's been uproar about the head after, but even watching the fight, I was thinking, they want to put a glove on her head, Katie Taylor. I mean, there was a lot of close head butting anyway, but no accidental, but quite often. I'm not saying she did it on purpose, but she was, because she's a smaller boxer, coming in.
It can still be accidental with one party
being
the
it was mainly her who was coming in with the head, and I don't know if that caused. I know the heads caused that. I don't know if it was when if she was her coming up. That might be another occasion. I can't remember. But either way, her head was constantly in the face of camera when they were close.
It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because I don't really know what you do about that if you're a referee. Because I had that the week before with Tyler Denny and Stignani, and that happens quite a lot in Denny's fights. Because he gets low, and they had that big head clash, and you can see that he's not looking, he's not stuck the head in, but at the same time, it's going to happen, isn't it?
I thought the referee.
So can the referee really do anything about it?
You can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's your job, and I think Jamie Moore did. I think the whole camp, the Cameron camp, to be fair, felt that this is all geared up for us not to win, and maybe it was the case. I don't know that, but they felt that way. And then when the fight happens and one judge gives it to Taylor by a massive amount, and one has it a draw, one just gives it for 2 points, then you send the ground. One of them is clearly not going. We're never going to win on that card. Plus the heads and the holding, which
the knockdown,
she hold and the knockdown. So all of a sudden you have the ground on a minute. Like, what do we have to do to win? You can start to feel like that then. But Jamie was quite honest. Jamie's an honest bloke, isn't he? Like, I don't know him too well, but he seems like a real lovely guy. But he sort of said it was a close fight. It was a close fight. We have no problem with that. But the heads, which we made him aware of before the fight, and the holding was excessive from Taylor. That should have been spoken about. Because obviously you can't, because in those later ones when you're tired, she's allowed to hold, which we all do. I never did it. They couldn't catch me to hold me. But and then camera can't do her best work, so you can argue about that.
Yeah, and if a point gets taken for either one or a combination of those two things, and that knockdown is called,
you can't do it, and you get stopped. You don't
then you look at the cards, and it's what have you got then? You've got a draw, haven't you?
Yeah. So there was some misinformation going around saying that if Cameron gets the knockdown, she wins, which is not true.
Because on my card, the knockdown still makes it a draw, or she doesn't win anyway. But either way, if she does get a majority draw, she keeps her belts, which means a third fight, which might still happen, but she gets to ask for more. She can ask for more money straight. No, she's going to have to beg for more money, because they don't have to go to her, but they'd have to go to her. They would, so they don't have to go to Katie Taylor and go to anybody. But I mean, that would be a more clamour maybe for that. I don't know. Right? It's a great fight either way. But I would say about also to balance it up a little bit, Cameron was using her shoulder, terrible, mind, and a forearm to push Taylor off. So she was guilty of infringement as well. But then she would argue I was using that because she kept holding me. But so there was plenty going on that both camps can argue about. But I do think with the heads, it was more Katie Taylor.
Yeah,
and it didn't distract from a great fight. That's what I would say. It still was a great thing to watch.
And even as you've just said there, Barry, even if it is accidental, referee still needs to be, because it's clearly affected Cameron as well. I felt clearly affected Cameron.
Well, that was a horrible cut in the head, by the way. And also, like every time you get hit there, you feel that, and you're panicking about how bad it is. The referee going to stop it because there was doctors going in and look on there, and it puts a whole panic on, and that changes the way maybe you approach that next round. You try too hard and then you gas out or whatever. I don't know if that really happened, but it can affect you. Can affect your whole game plan. And are you looking at the fight? And all of a sudden, you might think you're winning a fight, which I don't think she was. But and then you think you're losing. You think, oh shit, I got to do more, and then things can happen. So yeah, it's all an issue.
I was trying to find a way of tweeting it. I think I just kind of overthought it in the modern world, really. Where I tried to find a good phrase, and it's quite a simple phrase that we should really have used. It sort of like reminded me of like when we see with the fights, we old man Tim. Katie Taylor, old man Chantel Cameron, I thought this past weekend. What you mentioned there about the 10-2s, I think is absolutely right. She's just worked out that way of when to nick, when to flurry, when to kill the clock. And Cameron, for all of the good that she did in the first fight, and I thought, by the way, which was not something that was shared by, I think, two of the judges and certainly the commentary, I thought Cameron had a really good first round, but she had a really solid first round. And I think after the first fight and the first round, she maybe thought, okay, well, this is going to be...
So when you were talking about the scoring earlier on and the fact that the knockdown not being counted, I just assumed that all three judges gave Cameron that first round.
No. Yeah. But also that means it's only 1 point swing. So if the judges give Cameron the first round, what was the knockdown? Was it the first or the second round?
First round.
So if the judges have given it to her anyway, the big swing is if the judges would have given it to Taylor, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So Taylor would still win if that's caused a knockdown. Taylor still wins
because Cameron definitely won that first round.
On everybody's card, apart from Andy Lee's. But
Andy, I'd say we talk about the issues with scorecards on TV.
How difficult is it? I mean, you guys know this. I've never had to do it. How difficult is it to score a fight and commentate or analyse a fight?
Oh, it's hard
to do it and not on commentate. It's ridiculous because you like. We complain about judges' scorecard and go, oh well, but Andy Clarke didn't have it like that, or Barry Jones or whoever else they didn't have it like that. They had it the same as I had it, but his only job or her only job as a judge is just to do the fight. We're doing other things like worrying about what's coming next. You got someone in your ear, especially the main comms. They have someone in their ear all the time about, especially nowadays with promos and stuff like that. Don't forget to mention, for him it'll be. Don't forget to mention that Man United are playing Chelsea next Sunday at 3:00, and for the zone it's like don't forget to watch everything. Michael Sellers doing more promos than anything else. Really.
It's hard to explain kind of why it's difficult to score a fight and commentate, because I can understand why people would think it would be easy because you're just watching the fight really closely. But sometimes, because you're staying so much in the moment, it doesn't happen to me loads, and I don't get asked to score the fight at the minute, thankfully, but you can get towards the end of a round and think to yourself, I've been doing this second by second, just living in the second.
Yeah.
I can't really remember what happened in the first minute. That happens. Like sometimes Matt doesn't have to do it anymore either, Matt Macklin, because we devised a viewer scorecard, which was a kind of blessed relief for him and for me, to be honest with you. But sometimes when I've been working with him in the past, we'll get to the end of the round, they'll buzz through from the truck and say in his ear, getting towards the end of the round, on the bell, we need your score because we want to put your card up. And he'll turn around and look at me. And like I say, it doesn't happen a lot, but he's had that same experience. He's like, I can't really remember what happened in the...
Oh, he's terrible.
It's.
I never get to that point.
That happens to everybody.
Oh, no, it does. No, I'm always bang. I know when that wrong. It's right. That's exactly what happens. Sometimes you forget, and so it's a stupid. So I don't see that, and also it doesn't help the audience. You're giving them because you might have it wrong, by the way, and everyone's have their own opinion on a fight. But I'm scoring a fight, say Saturday, and I think Taylor won, so I'm not arguing about I got it wrong at all. But I'm like I got Jamie and Addy there, and we're talking while the fight's going on. So you're watching the fight, but you know what it's like. When you're concentrating and watching, and also if you got to concentrate on it, you can enjoy it, and you want to enjoy it because you're here. Like I'm not commentating. I didn't commentate on the main fight, so I want to enjoy it. I want to watch it and enjoy it. And I got to talk about things after. So I don't make notes, but I'm making mental notes. about what I'm going to say when we get in the studio. But then I got to judge the fight at the same time. Then I also got people talking, and I'm writing my scorecard down. Mine's a third party information, and in the past for different channels, my scorecard has been different to what I've written down. Someone somewhere have gone like yes, 10-8 Cameron. I've said Taylor, for instance, for argument's sake, and it's gone, and I've gone, and I don't really watch it. And I've gone, that's not my card. It's too. I can't turn it around now. You know, it looks like they can't once they put it up the card. They can't say, oh, actually, we'll change that round. Because it all looks suspicious then, doesn't it? Because people see your card on the TV and think that's the real card. And then if your card's wrong, it's like, oh, look at it, it's corrupt. Well, it's not corrupt because we have no say in who wins the fight. And that's why the scorecards are a waste of time.
It's funny, like
the best way I thought about doing it is like when HBO's do it, get a real judge to do it. But then where does he sit? Because he only gets to one side. The whole thing of having 3 judges, they get 3 different views. So they'll get a different angle of what's going on. Because like when I was watching the fight, for instance, Taylor's on the ropes. I can't see what she's doing, but I can see what Cameron's doing, or vice versa. When I was in the court, I'm not even in the centre of a side. By the way, I'm moving in the corner, so I haven't got a full perspective of what's going on. So my card is going to be massively tainted. I'm going to give you what I can see from my perspective, and from the angle I'm seeing it. You know, if you're watching boxing up in the gods before the big screens,
or even on TV compared to sitting ringside.
We could talk about this all day. Let's not. But the one that I always remember is being Daniel Dubois against Joe Joyce, and that was a COVID fight, which is another kind of aspect to it maybe. But the 3 judges all had it really pretty different. And the consensus on TV was that Joyce had absolutely walked it. I was on the same side of the ring as the judge who had Dubois quite handily ahead at the time of the stoppage, and that's how I had it. That's what I saw.
See,
but everybody just decided that was just absolute nonsense.
I had Joyce ahead,
but that was what I saw. I was on the same side of the ring as that judge, and I kind of did and didn't enjoy doing the card for Sky. I kind of enjoyed the fact that
you still got a job.
I would get to that I did.
Woo, got a job. There's no job for me really. I got a job.
I kind of enjoyed the fact that I would get to explain it. They come to me in between rounds, and I get to explain it. The card didn't just come up. Because then people can think, all right, well, I don't really agree with him, but I can see what he's thinking.
Because you say every round was close, but you know.
Exactly. Exactly. But at the same time, I also didn't really enjoy it because, like Barry said, you do want to kind of enjoy the fight, and I'd try to cocoon myself as much as I could, which isn't really possible. And you've always got someone tapping you on the shoulder and asking you something, and you're trying to concentrate, and it just. You know, it's a thankless.
And you have the commentary in your ear, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
The truck,
you can't not have that because the whole thing just doesn't work if you don't have that. So
you're getting that, and people talking to you and watching the fight. So you're not. You can't do it. I don't know why they persevere with it.
You can't recreate the same conditions as a judge. You just can't.
We're going to have to move on. But one of the other things we mentioned, kind of the heads, the holding, etc. Another thing that's been mentioned is we do have a member of the broadcast on the panel with us today, as always, Mr. Barry Jones.
Oh, I'm not slagging off people who I got to work for next week.
No.
We're fantastic.
Not asking you to slag anybody off. I think the way that
NFL.
The way in which I think we could probably discuss it from a fair standpoint is being caught up in the moment on the night, the occasion, the screaming Dublin fans. This is redemption. This is revenge for Katie Taylor. Similar to what I said before, and I'm not going to ask you put anything on you or get you to try.
I can be strong enough to say what I think you're going to say. They shouldn't have Andy Lee commentating on Katie Taylor fights. Is that what you're going to say?
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say about.
Then I think he's fantastic.
I was going to say about kind of keeping yourself in the moment, because I felt like the broadcast this past weekend, and it was something that was shared. Look, I have friends on the broadcast, as we all do. I did think it was incredibly pro Taylor, and I think if you're Chantel Cameron, you're watching that back, you're not going to be best pleased.
No, of course. Well, again, they've already thought everything was against them. Yeah. I did with that as well.
I think. Sorry to carry on. I think it's okay to have like a grown-up chat about this. Like we've all got friends on the zone.
Looking for you. You don't rely on them for money, do you? You know what I mean? But, well, not as much as I do.
No.
You know what I mean, you're not going to make a living off you, am I? For sake. But it is, and people tend to do that. Like you can't have Tony Bellew on a Joshua fight. You can have him there. You can't really.
He was on the last one.
No, he's got all of it. No, but we had not an argument. We had a disagreement on the thing after, and he was saying about Joshua, and I was going, he's not better. And then I was like, I'm not going to get no work. But you have to, so you want and you've got to have people that are tied into it. I understand, have a connection. People want to see that, like a Cordina fight, they want me there. But actually, and I'm not biased towards Cordina. I think I've done it long enough now to learn not to. And also, I don't get too close to fighters. You know that on purpose for that reason. I even though I love Cordina, but I don't know him that well, because then I can say what I want to say. If he doesn't like me for it, I won't be happy about that. I'd rather him like me. Like everyone to like me, but it doesn't matter because I don't mix with boxers. I don't really speak to them in the way. I say hello and that's it. I don't get too friendly for that job alone. So then they don't feel if they need to just come up to me and tell me. They could. What am I going to do? Like the little big, innit? But I mean, but it's so like you shouldn't have an Andy. It seems definitely get Andy Lee. Andy could do his job well. Andy's fantastic at his job, better than I maybe. But yeah, he's too close, too connected. I think the problem they had, I think that what people are going to say, is they called Cameron and they called Taylor Katie, first name, last name, and then that's definitely you're going to go, hang on a minute, so it's Katie, but it's not Chantal, it's Cameron. So I think that's an issue. You got to get that right. What you're going to call him, and because he seemingly knows her, I presume he knows her. Just because he's Irish, by the way, he doesn't need a best friend, is it? You think that? I got criticised with Lee Selby, and the people going, when he bossed Warrington, yeah, but Lee Selby. I said, I haven't lived in Cardiff for 20 odd years. I don't know Lee Selby. Yeah. I don't know him. I actually at the time I think I'd met Warrington more than I'd met Selby. I mean, if I had to choose who I wanted to win, it would have been Selby because he's Welsh, I guess. But it doesn't affect my life, and I think Andy might be the same. But it can look biased. I think you have to be careful about that. But also, you do get caught up in the atmosphere. It is a Katie Taylor night, whether you like it or not. Every night's an Anthony Joshua night when he boxes. Carl Sagan, that's what Carl Sagan night. Let's go on. Hatton, yeah. So they're the big draw. They're the big name. They're the story. Yeah, and Cameron, unfortunately, even though she won the last fight, she is part of the story, but she's not the story, and you got to realise that.
I think Taylor in Dublin is probably the most pro one fighter environment you could imagine in modern world boxing, because a lot of big fights obviously go to Las Vegas or Saudi Arabia at the minute, where no one's really the home fighter. That's just how that is a lot of the time. So to have a really massive fight where you're fighting in one fighter's backyard is actually quite unusual. Yeah, and so it is a very, very pro one fighter environment, and it's quite hard to kind of extricate yourself from that. And I know they're both Matchroom fighters, but Taylor was signed from the beginning by Matchroom, and this whole journey and all the rest of it. It's not that's. And if you try to kind of stand on the outside of that completely, people would probably criticise you for it, and on the grounds that you're not really involving yourself in the overall atmosphere of what this sporting event is, which is a Katie Taylor fight against Chantal Cameron. But it's a Katie Taylor fight, and they've been waiting for such a long time for her to box in Dublin, and now it's happened twice in a row. We thought it might not happen at all. So, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
And the problem you get, if she's having a good fight, the whole build-up's been Katie Taylor. Now, if Cameron just dominates and just takes over the fight, then it doesn't matter so much, because then you've got to just say, oh well, Cameron's doing. But then if Taylor's doing well, then it adds on to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In the first fight, Cameron won clearly, and they said that. Did they not? From what I remember,
no.
I don't really remember, to be honest.
No. And look, this is not. We're not sitting down here to kind of slag off anybody or to try and make out that this is specifically this past weekend.
But it's something that people talk about a lot, isn't it? Whatever the broadcaster is.
Yeah, and this is not like
slag off their co-commentator. You two can go ahead with that. Okay? You say they should be replaced with somebody.
but it's not a problem. It's not a problem that is in any way isolated to what we saw this weekend. It is part of the sport, like regardless of what country, what network, what fighter. Really, I mean, you mentioned about Vegas. Okay. Generally, yes, but if Canelo's there or if it's something,
it's a
everybody,
house fighter.
Yeah, we kind of have that.
Yeah,
I guess
Katie
for
Taylor
me,
is the house fighter anyway, even though they're both the house fighter.
I guess for me,
and the fight is in her house.
That all stuff that plays a part to the production and the general kind of package of the event. But when the bell rings, is where I and a lot of other people think that should stop, and that's where you're not seeing Chantal Cameron shots being called. You're not seeing the heads being mentioned. You're not seeing replays of the knockdown after the first round.
That was strange.
Strange is one way of putting it. No replays of the knockdown.
Have no vision of the
so that's where I feel like, and again, it's part of kind of what came out of Saturday night. I had the fight a draw, but I felt if someone was going to get it was going to be Taylor. I had no issue with Taylor getting it at all. I did feel like some of the later rounds, I thought Cameron really should have won the fight, considering how the fight started, what she'd done in the first fight, and the kind of the route to victory in the second fight was kind of there. Whereas I felt
I'd
like
still pick her in a third fight, Cameron.
Potentially, but I felt like late in the fight, Taylor was doing a lot of holding, and Cameron was the one who was trying to was working on the inside, and then I felt like in the 10th round she allowed Taylor, who summoned up that supernatural ability that the top can, and just found it for that last 2 minutes and nicked that last round, which I actually had making a draw for the fight. But I wasn't surprised that Taylor got it, but I was. From what we saw and what we were hearing on the broadcast, the 98-92 makes sense. The 95-95 is the outlier of the card, which I didn't agree with on the night. That's kind of how I saw it.
Well, yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough. It is fair enough. I think you can easily in doing commentary follow your co-coms or your comms, or your main com guy. Or you can both get rolled on a path where you're just mentioning one fighter all the time. Even if it's in a negative sense, you sometimes just say the one name. I'm not saying they did that, but sometimes you can. You also go, like so-and-so could be, but you never mention the other fight, and you go, hang on, there's two fighters in there, you forget about that. I've thought that recently with... it was a Sky Card, I think. I can't remember who it was. But I'm not joking. But,
but it's difficult in the moment. I like it, even when I'm tweeting and I'm not live on a broadcast with a mic with loads of people. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I'll tweet something and the next day go, fucking hell,
but I would say this. I would, like, no one ever, like, I don't know, the people, I can't speak for anyone else, but nobody has ever told me what to say on commentary.
No, nor me.
I don't think that's ever done. You might feel a pressure, I would say that, to be honest, or a duty or just an awareness for your own job that who the broadcaster wants to win. So I don't mean it doesn't affect your broadcast, but you know you're going to talk about that fighter more. You're going to build this fighter up more than the other fighter because that's their fighter. That's just how it works. Boxing is different to other sports. So football's just whoever's playing, even if it's the bigger side, they're impartial because the broadcasters are vested in the sport, not the team. But in boxing, it's not, because Sky are invested in Boxer and DAZN invested in Matchroom and TNT Queensberry, of course. Thank you, God. And but I think it's so you have to push the narrative. This is the guy who's going to get to the top. But you're right. When the bell starts, you should be more. Just forget about it. I would say so. And all I know for a fact, I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty certain that whatever they say on commentary
comes from them. And again, we're not.
They're not. It's not intentional. They might get carried away because of feelings or whatever, but they're not thinking, right, I got to push Katie Taylor here. He just maybe wants Katie to win, and it's come out, and that's the argument. Maybe if you're emotionally invested in any shape or form, you shouldn't really be doing that fight. I'm not saying you shouldn't do the job, you shouldn't do that fight because you're too close. That could be an argument, but like, I'm not too close. I don't think you are too close to fighters, and I don't think Matt is actually, and I don't. And Andy's not. That might be the only one. But Tony Bellu's not with most of them, but he's honest to say, listen, I can't, like I'll do the job, and he needs to work like all of us, not as much as us, but he still needs to work. But
he's very honest about it. He'll tell you if you ask him.
And still put him on.
And he would tell producers and directors. He would
say, Joshua,
he would say, I will never go against them. He'll tell you.
How does he still get put on the fights, man?
He'll tell you.
I got no problem with Tony.
I very much enjoy watching him in the jungle.
I think he's a really good analyst as well. Like, I think he really is good at breaking the fights down. Unless it's Derek Chisora versus Alexander Usyk or somebody like somebody who he has, by his own admissions, very honest about having that. Like personal affiliation.
Absolutely. One other thing I would add is that it is possible to miss stuff. Because when I'm commentating, I just watch the ring. I never look at the screen. I do between rounds, but I just watch the ring. And if you do that, for me, that's the way I would always prefer to do it, because I think you just get that whole overview and you get a sense of things much better. But if somebody's got their back to you, then you can miss things. And I've watched fights back before where someone's landed a real good solid shot and I've said nothing, and it's because I haven't seen it. But I could see how people would look at that and just think, hang on a second, you just mentioned the combination from Barry Jones. Rob Tebbutt's just crunched him with a straight right hand and you've said nothing.
Don't get him started.
But that's because that can happen. Some commentators will watch the screen more or exclusively the screen. I wouldn't do that myself, but you can miss stuff. And what you don't want to do also is you don't want to end up in a situation where you've got to trust yourself. You've got to trust what you're seeing. And you're not there necessarily to say that someone's definitely winning or this is definitely how it is or anything like that. But you shouldn't also be trying to second guess yourself all the time and cover yourself and say, well, on the one hand this, but on the other hand that, I've got it like this, because it just sounds like you don't really feel like you know what you're talking about. You know, you got to have the courage of your convictions. And sometimes, I'm not talking about Saturday, sometimes, and it happens to us all, we will see something that most people haven't seen. And you might watch it back and think, fair enough. And it's just a nice kind of reality check for you every now and again.
But social media has made everyone wary of being critical. I don't want to say the wrong thing though. Make sure I get this. Again, you've got to trust yourself. Just do your job, and you're gonna get criticized. Like you'll get criticized and praised for the same comment. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's totally like, God, you sleeping with him? Are you sleeping with him? Are you? And the other one going, whoa, Paddy, like you to give him an hard time.
Yeah.
Like well, so I'm loving him in your camp, and I hate him, and it's like what. So in the end, you sort of go, well, that's my opinion at that time. That was my opinion, right or wrong. I might be wrong. Of course, I might be wrong. Like, especially you more than me, but because you make up loads of words and no one knows what you're talking about. But that's it. I think that's so. I don't. We can drag on about it.
Well, no, I was going to say, I think we've done a pretty good job there of speaking about it in an objective way between two guys who are very, very experienced at dealing with that in particular scenario. So we're going to move on. We're going to still stay with Dublin this past weekend. Before we move on from the main event, who next for Katie Taylor? Andy, going to come to you first. We mentioned earlier on, talk of a trilogy bout, talk about Amanda Serrano. What do we want to see next for Katie Taylor?
I think it's one of those two. I don't see... She's got the best history with those two. Yeah. She's best off at lightweight. We all know that. And if she were to fight Cameron again, I think I probably would pick Cameron to win again, because I think she would learn some lessons from the second fight, and she's got the tools to do it. She's got the boxing fundamentals to make the size count, which is exactly what she did in the first fight. I think Serrano would be... I think either one would be equally good, because the trilogy thing is big, isn't it? It's one apiece, and settling that would be a really obvious thing to do.
First in women's boxing, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a really obvious thing to do. And if they could get Croke Park, which, as I understand, is by no means a given. You know, there's quite a lot of things that would need to happen for that to materialise. That would be absolutely incredible. But I'd be equally happy to see her fight Serrano.
Barry?
Yeah, either one of those. It's got to be. It's only one of those, isn't it? That's pretty much. But yeah, I would prefer the Cameron fight, because it's a bit of the Serrano fight was a better watch. I thought that was a brilliant watch, and but yeah, I think the Chantal Cameron thing, because it's one apiece, it'd be the first real proper world class trilogy in women's boxing. If I'm sure I'm right about it, for the excitement level, it puts it at another level. And yeah, so it's just for their legacies, but for that, to look back and go that we had we had three really good fights, great atmospheres, good fight, earned lots of money, and that you look back at that, that's an all-time great career then, isn't it? Especially for Katie Taylor, because I think that's got to be a last hurrah. I keep saying this all the time, we should stop saying it, but how long can you keep going on for? I think she doesn't need to go any further. Maybe she should stop now, actually.
It would be a way to go out.
A great way to finish. You avenge your only defeat and you walk away with plenty of money. Though the problem is with boxing, as we always say, all the money's at the end of your career. Yeah. So there's always there's a bigger carrot now, probably, for a bit more.
Yeah, those the two names that we mentioned there, Serrano and Chantal Cameron. You'd imagine both of those fights are career high paydays. You'd imagine.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? So But if I had to choose one of those, I go with the Cameron fight. But I do think there's more jeopardy in that fight for her.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Cameron trilogy. Okay, before we move away from Dublin, we don't have time to go through the whole card because, of course, there is the US show. Just a word on a spectacular performance from young Paddy Donovan, destroying Danny Ball in a fight that, a lot of people had predicted to be a potential close 50-50-ish sort of fight. Barry, listen to your analysis of the man. Excellent performance from Paddy Donovan.
But if you want to know, tune in by the zone. It's how much is it?
I don't know.
£11 a month. Fuck, I don't know.
You got some work to do before you're the official spokesperson.
Nah, they put me on a contract. I know everything. But anyway, it was what's on YouTube? The zone YouTube. It was it was he's brilliant. Like I know you just feel you can't put your finger on. You just feel like this kid's going to be a star, and he just got it. But the way he can switch gears really quickly. Danny Ball's a good fighter, and I thought that was a dangerous fight for him. I always felt he was going to win, but it could have been a really tricky, hard night. That could have been, and maybe should have been for a while, and it wasn't. Not at all. Like he just waited on the edge. They just keep leaning back on the back foot, just waiting for him to make a mistake, and yeah, really fast. Everything is didn't barely miss with a shot. He's really good, really impressive, and yeah, that's. Well, if Conor Benn's looking for a comeback fight at welterweight, Paddy Donovan wouldn't be a bad way to go with it. It's a hard fight for him. Yeah, there you go.
So, certainly would be a hard fight. It looks as though I saw kind of.
Sorry, I got to say it's a really hard division. That's maybe opened up a little bit now, but it's still a really hard division. But they're fast tracking him now. I think after that.
I think he's been quite unfortunate in his professional carear so far. I know he's had quite a few hand injuries, but he's boxed some decent level guys. Like C.R. Roscoe was a good fighter. He boxed Jumani Camaro.
I think he did. Yeah.
He's been there and done it, Paddy Donovan, in a short space of time, admittedly. So it is all relative to where he's at with his career. But
there's been a lot of confidence in him from the start. I remember when he turned pro, and Andy Lee was I think trying to help get him signed and have conversations and that kind of thing, and he was just saying, listen, this guy's really, he's the real thing, I think, and you listen to someone like him, obviously, and he's looked good every time I've seen him, but things haven't quite got off the ground, have they, for whatever reason?
No, so the
train hasn't really gathered as much.
He had some hand problems, a couple of instances, and then he had some issues outside the ring fairly recently as well. But I remember the first time I ever met Paddy Donovan, I put a tweet out about this. We were out in Vegas, and he was part of Fury's team when Fury was boxing Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin. And he was and Andy Lee said this brilliant thing, as he often does, and he said he's bringing him around. He wants him to see the big lights of Vegas, because Emmanuel Stewart used to do it for him and say, look, one day you'll be here, and I don't want it to be a huge surprise to you when you're here. I want you to see what goes on and all of this, that, and the other. And this is 4 years ago. And that was when he'd signed with Top Rank, and there was a lot of hype and what have you behind him. But for one way or another, for one reason or another, it didn't quite materialise after that. He's now not with Top Rank. Remember Andy saying to me about a year ago, I'm trying to get him over here with Matchroom. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I think it's fair to say after this past weekend, they'll be very, very interested in keeping him on Matchroom shows, because I felt like that was a real. Everybody's kind of heard about the talent of Paddy, and obviously Andy Lee doesn't, by his own admission, he only became a trainer because Paddy Donovan needed help. Paddy Donovan wanted to train with him, and he said, I couldn't turn it down. So I saw how good he was from the amateurs, and I couldn't turn it down. Then Jason Quigley came, and then then Tyson Fury and what have you. So Andy Lee's been sold on him for a long while, and you can see why, Andy.
Yeah, you can. The ability level is there for all to see, and as far as I'm aware, he's dedicated, he lives the life, and he's got that kind of bit of star quality about him. Remember Bob Arum saying when he turned pro that you're going to need to be able to fight, given how good looking you are, you're going to need to be able to fight. And I think he recognised as well that here was somebody who had some real possibilities, and hopefully now things start to roll, that he can get that activity level up a bit, which, as you say, that hasn't really been down to him. And I don't know what the plans are for more fight nights in Dublin outside of Katie Taylor, but why wouldn't you want to go there a bit more often?
Yeah, and there's potential there.
There's a lot of potential
for sure.
there.
Venues is the problem, maybe.
Could be. They've got the National Boxing Stadium, haven't they?
Yeah, it was
that
tiny,
indoor
yeah.
arena. But I mean, it's a York Hall kind of thing going on there,
it's
maybe.
really tiny. And the ring's about that high.
Oh, that's true,
It's
actually.
ridiculous, isn't it? The ring? It's so high. If it's still the same. But yeah, he's like, he has that great balance, so he can throw a weighted shot from pretty much going forward, going back. If he slips to the side, you always got good purge on his punches because of that judgment of the distance, really good timing, all those things that you can really teach. Really, you can tell people where they should be, but I mean, you got to have an instinct for it, and he's got it. And I thought he was really good. That was a big step up for him, really, I thought. And he looked... And you know when they're a good fighter, because when they take that step up, they make it look easier than they did the fight before. Like, hang on, this is a harder fight. You make it look easier than the lower levels. And that's the sign of a quality fighter. Yeah, he's really good. I mean, time will tell, because he's in a really difficult division. But I would fast track him now, like move on. And no, I think that's depending on what titles he can box for, I wouldn't be afraid of chucking him in just below world. I wouldn't chuck him in below
sort
level.
of fringe European-ish type
I think
level.
So,
Somewhere around there for sure.
David Avanesian, put him in with it. No, I'm joking.
For people who have he's
Not
many,
quite, yeah.
not a few, not far
No,
from
but
that.
not
A couple
quite
of fights,
that,
2
but
or 3
yeah.
fights. But I mean, just for people, for a bit of context on Danny Ball, beat Sam Gilly. We all know what a good fighter Sam Gilly is. Beat Mason Cartwright, 2-time British title challenger. Had a draw with Casey Benjamin. Got stopped by Echo Esserman.
That's the biggest shock. Not losing to Echo Esserman.
Yeah, but getting stopped by him. Yeah. But that's the kind of level. I mean, these are not shoddy domestic fighters. These are good fighters.
He's a guy who could win a British title. No, he's a guy who's that sort of level. Might genuinely.
If he had the right fight on the right night,
So that's a good level. I mean, so people go, well, people will go, when you look at fighters now, they judge them straight at world level. They go, yeah, but it was Danny Ball. He got beat by somebody, and
got beat by Echo Esserman.
But for where Paddy is now, that was a really good gauge for him. So I think you crack on with him now.
Crack on indeed, as will we on the Boxing Show. Moving over to Las Vegas on Saturday night. Andy, we've all sat here for seemingly the last 18 months or so and said we want to see David Benavidez versus Canelo Alvarez. If this past weekend was his audition for that fight, then it's one that he passed with flying colours. Surely
we're going to see that now, because that was a monster of a performance, wasn't it? And fair dues to Andrade. I felt like he kind of hung in there as long as he could, really, and he held his hands up after the fight. It must be hard to take when you're thirsting for that kind of platform. You finally get it, and then that happens. But yes, it couldn't really have been any more emphatic. And if he doesn't get that fight now, then I don't know what to tell you.
You say he's avoided. Don't you? You have to say. I never thought that Canelo was avoiding him for 1 second, but now that he sold himself there. Unless he's asking for too much money, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But he sold himself there.
Do you think there's plenty of it to go around for that fight, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, we think there's plenty of it, but maybe Canelo thinks there's plenty of it, but it should all be in my pocket. You know what boxers are like, at that level. They're not greedy. Of course they're not. Saudi have shown how greedy they're not, taking fights at 3 weeks' notice all of a sudden. but I thought Andre was fantastic, by the way. Really, I thought he was going to start fast but not have loads of success and then slowly get worn down. I thought he went faster. I thought that was a hard first round, but at the right of the bell he rallied, didn't he, at the right of the bell. So good for you, mate. You needed to show a little bit of something. Then I think I'll get this right now because I watched so much boxing. He had a really good second round.
Yeah, second round is where he had the landed the.
And I thought he did well in the third round, but in the fourth round he was just knackered. Like his engine just went boom.
It's one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, because before they went into the ring, Mike Coppinger posted a story that he'd done with Victor Conti, who was of course the SNC coach for Demetrius Andrade. Very interesting man, Victor Conti. Do research him if you haven't. But yeah, this piece that Coppinger put out said that he was 190. And that Victor Conti said that he's 190 pounds. We want to go in there and words to the effect of, we want to bully the bully and then dance like Ali. And then when he came out and he was clearly heavy, when he was clearly heavy and he started so fast, and then that massive drain of his energy. I thought that was a ridiculous thing to do.
That might be.
At 190 pounds. Look, surely Andrade can only win that fight by being elusive and fast and retaining all of the attributes that made him successful at 54 and 60.
That's what I thought even in 1 minute, I thought he was going to be mobile, and he does that quite well. When he gets close to the target, he spins around the body. Though this time he was pushing him, wasn't he, and trying to move. He was moving. He
was trying to move him back to the ropes. He's thinking like, that's never how you've ever boxed.
But he was working. He was smothering the work of Benavidez at times. But I thought, I didn't know that. But I thought, Benavidez must hit harder. Must be one of those punches who doesn't knock you out, but every punch is shedding. You know what I mean? So it's like bang. They like almost like just feel like the old-fashioned clubs where you can feel the knuckles and just wears you down. And I just thought maybe that's what it was. But if he's getting too heavy. People always do that. I think I got to get heavy and show him physical. I do understand that you got to have a bit of physical presence, but you got to use your guile. Like you can fight inside. You can work inside with somebody without being strong. If someone's pushing you back, you tuck in like this and you let them push you back. Let them walk you back, and then you shudder. Then you give them a little resistance, and that's your way to break free. And then you rally and you move. Or if they or if they let you push them back, but if you can push it back, then they sometimes they let you do it to them, and you do the same thing. That little gap like that gives you the release, the little catch to release. So when someone's physical, you can still beat them on the inside with guile, and he has the ability to do that because he can spin around the body, close to the body really quickly. He gets really low, doesn't he? He gets too low, actually. He gets illegally low, I think, with his head. But he can get underneath you and he can slip and slide, as we saw on Saturday. But trying to be a physical bully against a guy who's just, like, naturally big. It's just naturally big and strong. And that's all he is. I mean, he's technically not too bad, Benavidez, actually. He throws a good jab. It's not the fastest, but it's not slow. It's not the hardest, but it's solid. And then when he gets ready, you ping with the right hand, and he just uppercuts and hooks to the body, and his variation's pretty decent. He looks a bit ungainly, so you don't give him credit for his technical prowess, but it's not too bad. But ultimately, he's just always on you. He's just a big, massive rain cloud, and he's following you around the ring. He is, isn't he? That's all he is, isn't he? He just can't get away from him ever. Can't get away. And in the end, he just batters you. But Andrade showed loads of toughness. I didn't think he was that tough. I thought, again, I shouldn't be guilty of this. When you see a fighter like who moves a lot, you tend to think once they get loads of pressure on them, they're just going to crumble. It's not always the case. And he showed that. He showed loads of courage.
There was the heavy right hand at the end of the fourth round that dropped him. 5 and 6 were both very, very, very hard rounds.
But he was rallying money at the end. He was trying to go for it. He had nothing left. He was really trying to go for it. But that was a good performance. That was much quicker than what we all thought. Yeah.
I think the fight played out kind of
how we thought,
but just in a much shorter, condensed version.
I never understand that approach to the weight, because everybody will tell you that the idea is that you spar at the weight you get in the ring at. Now, if he was sparring at 190, then that yo-yo in weight is just way too much.
You took off 28 pounds
too
in
much
fight
trauma on your body. I mean, it's ridiculous. And if you're not sparring at that weight, then that means on fight night you're doing something that you've literally not done throughout your entire camp. So I don't get that. I don't understand it. Like, this obsession with being as big as you can on a Saturday night is just doesn't. I don't think there's any evidence for it.
Particularly if you'll
get the odd freak of nature who can somehow do it.
Yeah.
But most people, 8 to 10 pounds, the S&C guys I've spoken to will say you don't really want to be putting on too much more than that. And some fighters put on practically nothing, like Frochwood.
Yeah,
that's what almost no weight.
That's Freitas I boxed. I think he put on over a stone when I boxed him, but it showed because he kept battering me, and he could tire himself out with punching me. But he did though. He literally. I won round 4 and 5, just about, because he was tired. Not because I was better. He had to take 2 rounds off because he was knackered.
I mean, it can happen, can't it, when someone is just having to stay at a weight that they should no longer be at. Like that, then it can happen, can't it?
And it can also happen with your attritional grind you down. Like if somebody said like Benavidez put on 20 pounds after the end, he could kind of make sense because he's got the frame. He's a attritional fighter who comes forward and grinds you down. Somebody like Andrade where's the benefit for a guy who's made his whole career out of being athletic,
None.
out of being able to go in and out of range and be moved?
Yeah.
Where's the benefit of putting 22 pounds on your legs when you've had one fight at 168? I thought it was ridiculous.
That just smacks of somebody who's doing your S&C who knows nothing about boxing.
But Conte knows a lot about S&C.
Yeah,
So
he knows
surely,
about boxing,
But nothing about boxing, by the sound of it.
but I get that. But like from a point of like the basics, like you've just mentioned there, about doing something that your body is used to doing. How many times has Demetrius Andrade boxed anybody at 190 pounds?
Well, I don't know this, because what do I know? But I mean, like, you got, first of all, you got to remember what got you where you are.
That's,
by the way.
yeah.
So you'll look at that. You might be heavy, you'll still be explosive. That's what you might be thinking. You can still be explosive. You still have that fast twitch fibre. But when you're a mover, it's like you lose a lot of energy, but it's fluid movement. So you've got to be pushing off your legs constantly. So that tires you out. So if you're carrying weight, that's going to leave it. That's pushing down you, constantly pushing down on you. I'm talking on my back end, it's just how I feel. Like, so, and I was a mover more than anyone else, a runner, but whatever. But you need to be fluid on your feet. You're always on the balls of your feet. So that again, all your muscles in your legs is constantly engaged because you're on the balls of your feet all the time. Whether you're like the Adam Booth with the wide stance to be sharp, or you can put on weight for that because you're planning you're going to be sharp and hard and fast and then tire quick, but you hope you don't have damage. But for Andre, he knows you got to be physically strong. You don't get bullied, but you got to be light enough to be, like we keep saying. But you got to have that fluency in your movement. Without that fluency, you can't do it. So that heaviness. But they'll think you still got explosive power with it. You still be explosive with your combination. You still be able to rattle off your combinations fast. But you're wasting too much energy doing it because he's a smooth puncher. He's not. I said this, didn't I? About with him and Bennett, about the difference between him and Plant. Plant can go bam, 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 a little bit better than him, but he don't put on a stone in between, 2 stone in between him from fight night to weigh in. So but Andre's more of a smooth shot puncher, so he needs a lot of rhythm. So he needs to be light, he needs to be loose, and yes, it makes. But either way, he's not going to win the fight. I just think it made him more a condensed affair. But I think he comes with loads of credit. I think actually, Andrade, I think he did really well. No one thought he was going to win the fight except for him. And I think he showed loads of guts. I think, and also he was a fighter you thought I wouldn't mind seeing him again. I think his next fight will be a stinker to watch actually because he'll win.
It's going to be difficult to see where he goes next, I think, because now can he make 60 again? If he makes 60, where are the big fights for him?
Now he's stuck in.
But then where's the big fight?
But there's fights for him. There's got to be fights for him. Chris Eubank Jr. There you go.
It's a fight that doesn't give Chris Eubank Jr. anything. Apart from a hard night,
yes, right.
That's why when we did the preview for this, I felt like there was pressure on both guys. David Benavidez is the next. He's the Mexican monster. He's going to box Canelo Alvarez, whatever. But Demetrius Andrade, for having 35-0 going into, or 34-0, whatever, going into the weekend, 2-weight world champion. This was his one. This was his moment where I don't really agree that he comes out with massive credit. I don't. I just think that the way that he boxed was really, really naive, and going in there and expecting to bully David Benavidez when nothing in your career to this point has ever shown that is the way that you box at all.
But if he boxes the way he should have boxed, which I would say he should have boxed, all he does is run and move, and make it tricky for Benavidez and get stopped in 11 rounds, like we said, or 10, 11 rounds. And
that's the other side.
Doesn't have any sort of impact. At least he had a little bit of a go. And it was naive tactics, but at least he had a little bit of a go. So I think from that point of view, you'll go, oh, he had a go against Benavidez. And then you can argue then, he had more of a go than Plant did. And then you ask him and Plant has to box each other as an eliminator for another world title shot, possibly. Which wouldn't be a great fight to watch, by the way.
No, it wouldn't.
2 really good technical fighters, real clever fighters. But yeah, I don't think it would be.
No,
eye pleasing, but yeah. But where does he go? Where does he go anyway? He's always a fighter who needed a title to get work. So but I think this was the right fight for him to take. He had to take this fight.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely should have taken the fight. I think maybe not being at 190 might have helped. Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, we kind of, I don't know how we always manage to talk about the loser. But anyway, let's go on to the winner in David Benavidez. And I thought it was a really good performance from him. I thought he worked the body earlier than we've seen him in the past. I think he as you mentioned there, but I think by the end of the second round, he started to let his hands go, where I think generally we kind of expected that to happen more in the middle rounds. It seemed to be a performance that kind of showed a bit of the maturity and the development in him, but also really accentuated that youth and that freshness and that kind of unstoppable force that he looks to be at 168.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things. He's had a really interesting career, hasn't he? He achieved a lot early, and then he went off the rails a bit. Basically, I guess was would be the way you would describe it. So mentally, I think he will have done a lot of growing up in a relatively short period of time, and he managed to get that out of his system possibly, whilst still young, whilst his whole career is still ahead of him, so he could still achieve an enormous amount. And you would hope that for any athlete, when they've been through that kind of passage, that they realise it and that they know that you know, it hammers home to them. You get one chance at this, and he kind of looks like that guy now, really, and that can only be a good thing. And I just love to see him fight Canelo. Now, I would just love to see him fight Canelo. I think that would be it was already a really good fight because of, you know, their backgrounds and the way you could sell it and the marketability of it. But now also, I think people would look at that and feel like he's got a proper chance of winning.
Absolutely. And with that, we will come on to Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. Now, I was out in Tashkent a couple of weeks ago, the WBC, for whatever reasons. So they said that. So
bag of cash, probably.
David Benavidez is the interim champion at the weight. Canelo Alvarez hasn't had a mandatory defense of the WBC title since Avni Yildirim in March, I think it was, of 2021 or February of 2021. So he's due a mandatory challenger. Canelo, the way that it was put forward was the winner of David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade is already the mandatory challenger, but the winner of that fight will officially be the mandatory, and then we will wait to see what Canelo Alvarez decides to do, was the official ruling. That was just kind of my political disclaimer. Let's just pretend the fight does happen. Who wins that fight? If it happens May next year, Barry?
I think the timing, career-wise, it favours Benavidez. Size favours Benavidez. Energy at this stage favours Benavidez, but he's hittable. I don't know. I'd still slightly favour Canelo, but I'm not sure, because you can see Benavidez just not being constantly honest on him all the time, not giving him space. But Canelo, if Canelo can get anywhere near his peak, which who knows, maybe he can, then the way he slides into the distance, the way he throws his shots, and the way he works the body, Benavidez blocks a lot of shots, to be fair, but I don't think he can block all of Canelo's shots. I think those uppercuts through the middle get through. The hooks around the guard will push the glove out the way. I think he'll feel it for the first time. He'll feel it, and the experience of Canelo might just get him over the line. Or we get a Canelo who just wants to. It's just waiting. Once I land the shot, I'm going to get you. If we get that Canelo, then Benavidez beats him. So I've covered my back. No, it's that sort of fight.
No, that's one of the reasons why everyone wants to see it. Because there's not a definitive answer.
We know what Benavidez we got. We got a Benavidez who's still full of himself. Yeah, maybe he's still yet to peak, arguably. But Canelo, we know he's peaked. So what can he give us again? Well, we get Canelo. We get the Golovkin version of Canelo, like with that energy. Then I fancy him. We get Canelo who turned up against Bivol. Bivol was fantastic, but we get the one who just thinks he's just waiting until he can land a good shot. We get the Canelo who beats Callum Smith, and then you get that one who just walking around, waiting for you to make a mistake. He loses as well, by the way. We need a Canelo who every time you throw a punch, he's throwing loads back with power and accuracy, and willing to take a shot, to give a shot, but always right on you. It's a great fight if we get that one. I mean, it's the fight.
Yeah, it's tremendous. I just think the kind of the positions they're in their careers is what makes it so good. Because
it's so beautiful.
If you think about the kind of like career pyramid, we've seen Canelo standing at the top of that pyramid not that long ago, but I think now he's kind of going down the right hand side. I think Benavidez is still moving up that left hand side. I don't think he's got to the apex yet, and I think that's what makes it really, really interesting. And if Canelo beats him, I think it will take a really big performance from him, and you love to see that from someone who you feel might be going down the other side of the pyramid. Katie Taylor last weekend, exactly the same kind of thing. What was so impressive about it was just watching her dig it out, and that, a victory that's that's earned more by heart and will and sheer determination. It's still one of those things in boxing that you can see that you don't necessarily get to see in other sports as much, just because of the nature of it. And it's just really, really impressive when someone has still got that fire in them to do that. And I feel like Canelo would need to do that if he's going to beat Benavidez, if Benavidez really turns up on the night. And I don't really have any reason to feel like he wouldn't. So I'm all over it. You know, I just think it would be terrific.
If I had to push you for a winner.
Yeah, go on. Do it.
I just think Benavidez might just be getting him at the absolutely perfect time. And when I say the perfect time for it to be a mega win and not against somebody who people would say, oh, well, he was too far over the hill.
Still get credit.
Still get a lot of credit for it. I think, but not with any certainty. I
It's
just think it could be that really, that passing of the torch where you look at it and you just think, that was not because the other guy was shop worn or done. And Canelo hopefully would still get a load of credit for it, and people would kind of like love him even more, maybe because he took on that guy and he didn't hide. And you know, he you know how it happens sometimes where, you know, the star, the person who's been that big star, they almost become more loved when they lose, because you see them just go to that well, and it's not. But on the night, it's just the other guy's just.
Eubank's a prime example, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but on the night, just the other guy, the younger guy, the new guy, he's just got a bit too much. So I'm romanticising the whole thing out to the nth degree now. But I really, really hope that's what we see.
It's that type of fight, though, and that's part of the reason why I think all of those intangibles you just mentioned there about that's one of the reasons why the fans really want it. And if he gets in there, even your most anti-Canelo fan, that is a. Deserves a lot of credit getting in there with this guy at this stage of his career. It's what you mentioned there. We kind of talk about it a lot here about hunger and whether or not you really know until you're in there. And you see Canelo with his hundreds of millions in the bank, Canelo energy or whatever he's got outside the ring as well. He's 4-weight world champion or whatever, undisputed champion, all of that. How does Canelo feel when it's round 7, round 8, round 9, and you're on that stool, you're 35 with your 150 pro fights that you've had, and he's over there, and he's coming, and he's still in there. How much do you still want it? Are you still hungry? Because he's starving, and he wants everything that you've got. And if Canelo can do it, then
that's what I mean.
I think
that for me would be the biggest win of his career.
Massive.
The biggest win of his career, I would say. I mean, the first 2 Golovkin fights, people can say what they want about how they were scored and how whatever. For me, I think if Canelo were to beat David Benavidez on Cinco de Mayo next year, would go down as his greatest win.
I think the way because you think about can he have the same energy, but he doesn't want to get beat by a Mexican. Like, you're the best fighter on the planet in your mind to get beat by someone from the same street. It's that scenario, isn't it? I don't lose to a domestic rival. Not in a minute. You want to see a great Mexican rivalry. You don't want to lose it. And when he whacks Benavidez with a good shot, and Benavidez goes like that, bam, 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 and walks right up to him, I think Canelo goes. I think he forgets about his hundreds of millions in the bank. He forgets about his career, and he goes, "Whoa,
Yeah, I'll show you."
And we get him, and we get that Canelo again. Like when Golovkin whacked it, when he hit Golovkin with a couple of shots, bam, 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 and Golovkin just went, "Nice one. Watch this then." Bam, and hit him back, and he went, "Oh," and he went, "Yeah," and you could see it in his face.
Yeah, I think
Canelo almost liked it. You know what I mean? I it was astounding that first one. Like I just thought, oh. Even when he Golovkin didn't move, and then when Canelo hit Golovkin with Canelo, and Canelo never moved. I went, that was a bigger shock for me. I went, what? Canelo just punched Golovkin, punched right through his head one time. Canelo, I mean, like it was a Golovkin punch that, and you all go, oh, we're going home now, wicked.
Yeah,
we'll be on the strip. I was in Vegas, me and Alex Dean, right, phoned the club up. We're going there. We're going in early. And then Canelo just went, what? I'll have some of this. And I think this fight might draw that back into him. Whether he got the same vigour to actually do it, I mean, his mind will be there. Whether he can physically do it anymore, who knows?
And that's what we'd watch for.
His body's changed dramatically, but I think the camp would be different to other camps recently, where we've heard rumours that he still trains, but not the same intensity, maybe. But this one he'll have to, because the fear factor is there. And then the Bivol loss helps him. because he knows now that he can be vulnerable. But this is a different fight. He's not. He knows it's just a physically hard fight. It's not a technically hard fight. Cause he knows where Benavidez is. He's right in front of your face. You can't miss him. He's there, isn't he? He's like, he's there. His belly button's there because he's so tall. But like, so that's it. I think it's a great fight. It'll be the most anticipated fight if it gets made. Forget about the heavyweight garbage. That's the one.
And we'll all go out. Rob, you'll take me and Barry out. You know, sing it all down, sing it. It'll be
live on the Zone, isn't it?
Can't wait.
Live on the Zone because there's no showtime anymore, is it? Where does it go?
Amazon Prime.
Is it? Is that where they're
I don't
going?
know. We'll have to wait and see.
Right, but might they're building an Amazon?
Boxing News will stick it on.
Yeah,
we'll stick it on. Canelo Benavidez on Boxing News pay-per-view.
Yeah, that will happen. That will.
Let's go.
Yeah, and then you'll jib me off for someone else.
Myself.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Right,
Give myself the co-commentary spot with Andy Clarke.
Oh yeah, you did that to me before, didn't you? Remember you did that? You did it to me before. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't me, man. It was you.
Okay, anyway, moving on.
Ego.
Anyway, moving on. We're only going to touch up a couple of quick ones from this card because I do want to talk about Conlan Gill this weekend before we wrap things up. The return, Andy, of one of, if not the most dangerous men in boxing, Subriel Matias, the IBF super lightweight champion, made mincemeat out of Shojahan Ergashev. Took 4 or 5 rounds to get the job done, but I mean that man, it's sort of like what I would imagine fighting somebody in a nightmare would be like. Boxing Subriel Matias. Yeah,
he's something, isn't he? He's great to watch. I mean, he stands up quite straight and tall. His feet are quite close together a lot of the time, but he doesn't seem to give himself that really solid base to punch off that the coaching manual would kind of prescribe. But he's just got really heavy hands and he can do damage. And I think that's the 5th time in a row now that he's forced his opponent to retire in the corner and basically say, look, I don't want any more of this. And I find those stoppages really, really impressive. But we all love a good knockout, but when you just make someone quit, essentially, that is absolutely brutal. You've really unmanned your opponent when you manage to do that. And he's just amazing. He's great to watch.
He's brilliant.
He's great to watch. You look at that division and... Yeah, I know that there's always, cross-promotional problems and all the rest of it, but just imagine him and Teofimo Lopez in New York. Lopez from New York, Matias, Puerto Rican, massive Puerto Rican fan base, reignite that Cotto fan base from years gone by. Just imagine that. Like I'd be. I mean, we'd all go, Rob. You take us out. It'd be the most expensive podcast that we've ever done. But wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be just so good?
Yeah, apart from if you're Teofimo Lopez, you'd imagine. But I mean, in all seriousness, that would be a really, really great fight.
What a fight! He's hit the ball already. That's the
thing. I know.
Yeah,
something that we saw in the Jeremias Ponce fight. Sorry, Barry. Something we saw in the Jeremias Ponce fight, where Jeremias Ponce, we all know, is the man who beat Lewis Ritson over here, went over and tried to knock him out in the first 2 rounds, didn't he? Went over, let everything go, and Matias, like he did this weekend against Ergashev, just kind of keeps it as tight as he can, and then just starts to touch you. And then once he starts to touch you, they go, "Oh shit, that's not supposed to hurt like that."
We need to see more of him, don't we? Is the thing. It's like he boxed once in 2021, once in 2022. I think that's 2 this year. That'd be just fighters like that. You want to see him as much as you can.
He's like a mini version of Joe Joyce if Joe Joyce had more skill.
And the speed he punches in combination as well.
Long as well.
Yeah.
He's got such long arms.
Where does
he's got ridiculously long arms, but he doesn't really use it.
Where does that power come from, Barry? Because the layman watching him from the outside, he doesn't load up on his shots. Even he doesn't look set correctly to throw a lot of the shots that he's throwing. But everything he does, it's like he's torturing his opponent every time he touches him.
When he got the long arms, so and also he is doing that turn from the waist, so it doesn't look like much. But it's a natural movement, so he's mastered it, so you don't really see it. Like when you see someone kick a football really hard, they do that. You know the technique. You don't see that. You don't see him doing the technique that they teach kids to do, because they do it so quick and so natural. They've gone from doing it from, they've shortened the movement. Now they know how to master it. So he does that quite well, and it's long as well. So all the punch on the end of the punch, you can get it nice and long. He gets the distance right for that. And I didn't really check him. I bet you his back's big. All the power's in the back of your body, by the way. All the big muscles in the back of your body. That's where all the power comes from. People always look at this and go, whoa, check the back. The traps are big and the lats are big and the legs are big. Then you're in trouble. Forget about that. That just looks pretty. There's nothing. I never worry about the 6-packs, me. Oh, you look nice. Ooh. It doesn't. It doesn't help you take. It doesn't even help you absorb punches. Really, it does, but not massively. But the back is where the power is, and that's what you've got to look at. But technique's everything with him. But he looks, I don't know, but a natural power. Some people just touch you, can't they? For some reason, it works for him. But it's the way he absorbs shots. He took some really good shots.
Yeah, it was different because the Ponce fight, this is the first time I'd really noticed it from him, where he kind of just tucked up really for the first couple of rounds. But Ergashev was hitting him with some really good left hands, and he was feeling the weight in those shots.
He's breaking his hat every time he hits him. He's going, no, that because everyone else, if it don't, that has an effect. I mean, right through the guard, they were solid shots.
They were big shots.
He's just walking him down. It's just that's demoralising. When you're a puncher, when you're not a puncher, that doesn't bother you like me. It never bothered me if I hit the punch. I've hit a guy. He called me a pussy. Peter Judson, right, Pete? He called me a pussy for 12 rounds. I made him be a pussy. I spoke. I'm not even joking. Those are the exact words. And I didn't worry. I know what I am, mate. Like, I'll just keep hitting you. You know, that was the plan. But like when you can bang and people are falling over, or you're stopping people with those shots, that gotta be a worrying sign. Because he's not only absorbing the shots, he's chewing them up and walking you down with it and hitting you off it. That's the worst. Like, you hit a guy with a big shot, the last thing he's meant to do is throw one back. There's a gap there where you're meant to do something. I say after the punch, is quite important, because when you hit someone with a big shot, there's a bit of a pause where you can either throw another shot or move into a place to throw an even more concussive punch, if you're really using your brain. But when you hit the guy, and the first thing he does is go, like, he takes it and goes whap, whips a long right hand over the top. No wonder you quit on your stool, because you think you're panicking straight away, and as you panic, and you start throwing more power into your shots, but it's not more power, it's just more energy and more weight, and it slows it down.
It's the most dangerous. Panic's the most dangerous thing, isn't it?
I mention panic all the time now because I see it more than ever before.
It just empties your tank. It's a spiral, and once you're in it, it's so hard. I'd imagine it's so hard to drag yourself out.
It's like being claustrophobic. Yeah. You're not going to suffocate.
And there's nothing that's going to make you panic more than hitting someone, it usually having an effect and it not having.
You can just see this, and it's similar to the Andrade fight. I tell you what, though, having Benavidez and Matias on the same card, do that again. Fucking hell, brilliant. It's brilliant. And they're obviously Golovkin and Chocolatito, very different style-wise, but it reminded me of that when you got like a little one and a big one, and they're just both brilliant to watch, box office to watch. But yeah, definitely do that again. But yeah, you could see Ergashev, similar to Andrade, kind of after a couple of rounds go, oh shit, I'm tired now, and he's still coming. There's that really interesting, we all kind of have our differing views on punch stats, but there's a kind of a live tracker that's been going around on social media since the fight, where it shows like, okay, for the first round he throws this amount of punches, then the second round it's like this amount, and then it shows like rounds 3, 4 and 5, where Matias goes, I think in the first couple of rounds I think he threw a combined 35, don't quote me on that, and then in the next round he threw 107 and then 85, and he just has that thing where he clicks into gear and goes, oh, you're feeling it now, I'll step things up.
He's not clicking. But he has to make you slow down, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he takes your soul. That's what he's Pac-Man, isn't he? So he's just eating you up. So in the end, you've got nowhere to go. And it's like, but he works when you don't. But he makes you busy. That's Golovkin, didn't he? Make you throw. You don't want to throw. Again, that's the panic. You throw out the necessity rather than when you're comfortable. And it's your breathing's wrong. That's the panic part. And that's what I was saying about being like suffocating, because you can't breathe. And that's what you have to throw to keep people off you.
But if you've not, for someone who's not done it, it's a really fascinating thing to watch. I mean, it makes me sound like a sadist, but it is a really fascinating thing to watch when you've got one fighter fighting at seemingly their own pace with all the time in the world, just walking across the ring like they're walking up to the bar to order a drink, and somebody else who looks like they're in fast forward. You know, it's just it's wild. I
don't know what happened with Ergashev. There was talk in the corner about a leg injury. I don't know how, but one of the things that I did notice during the fight,
like his arm was.
I think they said something about whatever. But in the second or third round, it was like Matias sort of went from tucking up to walking forward, and Ergashev just allowed him. And I was thinking, okay, well, this fight's over. You can't just allow him to walk into punching range without anything. No feint, no doubling back with your feet, nothing. Don't occupy him. Just allow him in there and then punch with him. You're toast, mate.
But he's confused at that point, because what he does so well,
hasn't worked.
No, but it was working. But having no effect.
Result.
So you're thinking, what the fuck am I doing there? No, what am I supposed to do?
You used the perfect word earlier, demoralising. You know, you get demoralised early on in the boxing ring. I mean, that must be an absolutely hideous experience because you can't feel sorry for yourself, but you are feeling sorry for yourself, and you probably feel quite justified in feeling sorry for yourself. But that's all part of that panic vortex, isn't it? And once you're in it, I think you're done, aren't you?
Going out for a round and not knowing what to do, or knowing whatever I do, I know. You know, you don't think it, but you know it's not working. But I can't do nothing else. I've been there, but you got to do it anyway. What are you going to have to do? Quit on your stool? That's what happens sometimes. But that's where you feel. You don't. It's not a conscious thought, but this is what I've seen. That's sort of like in your head, really. But it's a horrible place to be. Cause you're like, the minute rest is literally a minute rest. It's not instructions. It's like it's a minute like escape from your torture. It can be like that.
And I think we saw that from both of them.
But you've got to
Ergashev and Andrade.
You've got to go out there because that's what you do. That's what you do. That's your job, and that's what you want to do because you want to win the fight. Because your focus is all you're not focused on about your health. You're focused on your fight. But you do think, fucking hell, what's going on? Like, why am I? For me, it was always like it was only the one fight, but for me, it was like, why am I faster? I'm faster. Why am I? No, he's faster than me as well as more powerful. No, and all those things. And same for Ergashev. He's like, hang on, this is his first round. This is brilliant. Look at that, bang, got him.
He went to a 4-1 favourite after the first round.
Because he's so used to it, isn't he? Like, this is my fight, and that's worse as well. By the way, I never had that. I had the 20 seconds knocking someone down. I mean that. Yes, go out the corner. This is it, and then all of a sudden, this is it. In a minute, is this it? You know, you can see the energy goes. Cause you're like, this is it. It's not quite it yet. Round 2, it's not quite it, but we're getting there. Round 3, it's fucking hell. It's not. What's going on? This is it. This should have been it like 3 minutes ago. And all that time you're tired. He's slowing you down. He's a monster. He's an hard work for everyone. You'd watch him and you think tactically, he's a guy you can train for. You can train to beat. I think.
He had the loss to Petros Ananyan, which was the first fight after the Max Dadashev fight, which of course Max Dadashev unfortunately passed away due to injury suffered in the ring. I was actually at that fight. It was on the Wilder Fury 2 undercard. He boxed Petros Ananyan. It was the only fight that he'd lost, and by his own admission, after the Dadashev fight, he was, he wasn't living the life. I think he had some drug issues outside of the ring because of
understandable.
Of course, everything that had happened since then. But since that fight, he stopped Malik Hawkins. He beat. This is kind of what I expected of the weekend, and it sort of played out similar to it. He beat Batir Jakembiev. The Kazakh, good amateur, boxed over in Canada. He stopped him. Then he stopped Ananyan in their rematch, stopped Ponce, and obviously stopped Ergashev. And I don't really feel like, maybe the Ananyan fight, but I don't really feel like he ever really gets out of second or third gear, because by the time he steps it up, the fight's over pretty much. And I felt like it was like that against Ponce, and I felt like it was against Ergashev. I felt like he was just thinking, yeah, right, I'm getting all the fights over, and still. And that was it.
He might not have a second. He might not have a third.
It's just him.
It might just be that way. We'll find. But as boxing told us, we'll find out what he's all about. No.
And he's been boxing all over, hasn't he? And it'd be great to see. It'd be great if they could just see what happens with him in New York. Maybe try and establish a bit of a base for him.
Don't know if
or Orlando. That's another city with a big. I remember Cotto boxing there, and the reason against Delvin Rodriguez, I think, and the reason he did was because that's another big Puerto Rican population. It would be really good to see if they could just try and do something with him on that score, because there's nothing better than that. You've got someone really, really good to watch, establishing a bit of a base for them. I'm all for that.
Going to be difficult to find an opponent for him, isn't it? Like 140 pounds. You mentioned Teofimo Lopez. That's a brilliant fight, but it's not
going to happen though, is it?
You've got one at Top Rank who's a huge investment for Top Rank, and you've got Subriel Matias over at PBC, who, while a fantastic fighter, somebody we all like to watch, he's not the biggest name, he's not the most marketable name. Devin Haney, if he beats Regis Prograis, or Prograis beats Haney, they're probably not looking at him going, yeah, I'll fight that guy. The guy who's 20 wins, 20 knockouts. It's going to be difficult, isn't it?
We're going to get him versus
Jack Catterall, maybe.
O'Hara Davis.
What about Jack Catterall? Wants a world title fight?
Yeah, I mean it's a possibility.
Where else are you going to get one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, that's right. It's true. No, you're right. You've got to take it where you are. And the ability Jack's got, the skill he's got, you fancy that. Again, tactically, you watch him and you go, you can set up a plan out to beat him. You just got to hope that he doesn't.
He plays ball.
He doesn't swallow you up. That's all. You got to bank that I'm going to have loads of energy and I'm going to keep moving. And Jack has the ability to do that.
He's got probably the style. I mean, not to say
Yeah.
that he's a better fighter than Teofimo Lopez or anything like that, but style-wise, he has got the type of style that you'd want somebody to
And
neutralise.
a really, really good temperament.
Just neutralise Subriel Matias. Yeah, exactly. Good temperament. Don't panic when he starts to get in close.
Doesn't throw a lot of punches, so there'll be a gap there to hit. So he'll be happy to go bam, 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 and move. Whereas other fighters who go, there's a gap there and want to dig one in, he'll be happy just to throw the shots to stay nice and loose. So yeah, it wouldn't be a great fight to watch. I think it'd only be a great fight to watch. I think if Jack gets caught up and stopped. If Jack wins, you've got to be a bit of a safety first and a smash and grab sort of affair.
And on the back of the Linares fight, I mean, you got criticism for the Linares performance, but that performance is exactly the type of performance. If you do that against Subriel Matias, all of a sudden you're a star.
That's it. That's how you do it.
All of a sudden you're a star.
Yeah, it's a winnable fight for him. It's a hard fight, and you make him an underdog. You'd have to, but yeah, and he deserves a world title shot after what happens with Josh Taylor. But yeah, that's probably the way in.
Richardson Hitchens is another one who's kind of got a good style for that type of onslaught, I suppose. Again, you'd make Matias a big favourite in that fight, but somebody like Hitchens who can control the distance, not really asked about entertaining, with all due respect to him. Like, you can control the distance, keep him at the end of a long jab, but you just feel like anybody who's boxing Subriel Matias, it's a bit of a thankless task. Obviously he's got the world title there, but a very, very difficult fight.
But it might be for promoters, especially now with what's happening. I don't know exactly what's happening with all that, but if how much tied in he is in with, still doesn't get that right, with PBC, then that's a guy you can get to the UK.
There was some quite serious talks between Matchroom and Subriel Matias about getting Matias to sign with Matchroom. Of course, they ended up with Regis Prograis. Obviously, one.
They ended up with Regis Prograis.
You know what I mean? Like 140, particularly with all those lightweights moving up now. Obviously, Ryan Garcia's in the mix. Ryan Garcia is a good example. Ryan Garcia wants a world title fight. Does he fight Subriel Matias? Does he fuck?
No,
like, definitely not.
If you're in the Ryan Garcia business, you don't.
Nah, we'll fight the winner of Haney Prograis or Teofimo Lopez. Yeah, exactly.
Javonte Davis, he take Javonte's power. Walking Javonte, who, by the way, he towered over him like crazy. But yeah.
Right, okay, we're going to move on, but before we do, we're going to, I guess...
That was a great bill, by the way.
It's a excellent bill.
Brilliant.
There was 5 or 6 brilliant fights to watch that. I think the first fight that I watched, got really entertained by, was the Michel Rivera-Sergei Lipinets fight, which was on YouTube, which is brilliant. I think it was about 11 o'clock at night. It was amazing. But yeah, really, really strong card. Going to run through a few of the highlights, the high points from it. Jamal Charlo, of course, returning from his 2.5-year hiatus with a decision win over Jose Benavidez. And the new WBA Super Featherweight champion, Lamont Roach, with the upset win over Hector Luis Garcia to pick up the WBA Super Featherweight title. Now puts himself in potential line for a certain Joe Cordina or any of the other guys in and around Super Featherweight. But that's all we have time for in the review section of the show. We do have about 15-20 minutes or so to look through this weekend's action from Belfast. Barry, going to come to you first. Michael Conlan returns against Jordan Gill up at Super Featherweight, which of course not really a natural weight for either of them. But Michael Conlan with his first fight since coming unstuck against Luis Alberto Lopez.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The atmosphere will be fantastic, of course, and it's a good fight to come back to. But Jordan Gill, as he's shown, can be dangerous, but I don't really see it as a really difficult fight for Michael. I don't. I think with his ability, it depends on how much he got left, by the way. They're all banking on that. He always said the thing, because he's not the youngest. And
it was on the back of a brutal stoppage loss.
But his ability, but he's not boxing Lopez here with the power. Well, Gill can punch, and he can hurt you, but I think he can be outboxed. And I do think we're going to see Conlan do a number on him. I think there's always risks attached to the fight. I would say that, and Gill, this is a big chance for Gill. This might be Gill's last chance really to try and crack into any sort of ratings, but I just can't see how Conlan doesn't control it with the feet and sort of makes Gill fall short, picks the shots really well, and he'll probably go the distance. But I think Conlan wins almost every round.
Andy, obviously the first time we're seeing Michael Conlan after that loss to Luis Alberto Lopez. We saw Jordan Gill have that brilliant fight with Karim Gurfi, and of course that fantastic knockout, but then was beaten pretty comprehensively by Kiko Martinez in a very strange fight to make. But anyway, are you giving him any chance of the upset this weekend against Michael Conlan? Obviously, I think the weight probably favours Gill slightly more. Admittedly, both not super featherweights, but
yeah, I saw Jordan at the Board Awards, which would have been back in March, and I asked him, "What are you thinking?" And he said, "Well, I need to move up in weight," and he was going to try his luck at super featherweight, which is a normal thing to do when you have the kind of experience he had against Martinez. I'm not going to disrespect Jordan Gill by saying that I don't think he's got a chance, because I do think he's got a chance because of what's happened to Conlan against Lee Wood and against Lopez. Now, those two, in terms of what they've achieved, are on a different level to Jordan Gill. But getting knocked out is a big deal. And it's happened to him twice now. And it's happened to him in different circumstances. The first one would have been very difficult to get over because he would have felt like he was almost there. The world title was almost in his grasp. And I know that they would have looked at the knockdown that was given that they don't feel should have been, that put the wind in Wood's sails and all these kinds of things. I know that was a real hard one. The one against Lopez was different, but worse. Yeah, I think it was worse because he decided to fight Lopez's fight and he got knocked out, and so that's twice now, and it takes something away from you, and we can't really know how much. And he's changed trainer. That's interesting in itself. I don't know exactly why, but the conversation between him and Adam Booth, I would have loved to have heard it, because as a trainer, sometimes when you see someone get knocked out like that on two occasions, you might be saying to them, "Listen, I think this might be a good time to hang them up and think about your health." I don't know, but there could have been elements of that in the conversation they had. I shouldn't really speculate on that, but you know, when someone's been knocked out a couple of times, then it can go there, can't it? It can go there when you're looking at your own future. So you've got two guys here who are both really always in this to try and win a world title. That's what they always wanted. And for Jordan Gill and for Conlan, this is, where does the loser go? There is nowhere for the loser to go, is there? I don't think, given that that's their stated ambition for the pair of them. If Conlan uses the boxing skills that he's got through that fantastic amateur career that he had, then he can win. He can win this fight. So I make him favourite, but I don't know. I think it might have been an interesting night in Belfast on Saturday. There's some other really good fights on that card too. I like the card a lot.
I think there's a bit of spice to that top of the bill. Going with the Lee Wood thing, connection with Gill, best mates and all that. And he was jumping up when Lee Wood win. Why wouldn't he, by the way? Yeah. But you do take that personal, of course you do. Especially the whole camp. His dad sat there and he's jumping around. His son's on the floor, and the other guy, he's jumping because his mates just had an amazing knockout win. So I think that there might be some spite there, which might favour Gill actually, because that might get Conlan involved in a fight, and that gives Gill a bit of a chance. Yeah, but I just can't see how Conlan just doesn't. Conlan's first and foremost a fantastic boxer, world class ability. Yeah, but there's a worry there. You keep chasing something that's not obtainable anymore.
Well, it's an interesting point you make there, because he said to us when he came in, he came into the studio a couple of months before he boxed Lopez, and he said of Jamie, that Jamie, his brother, of course, kind of fought Joe and Ancajas. Yeah, and he said that he was happy to retire there and then because he boxed for a world title and he knew that he wasn't good enough. Yeah, and he was quite content to just box for a world title, never going to become a world champion. That's me done. You mentioned there about chasing something that potentially isn't there, and I agree with you, Andy, that the first fight, but you know, the wind was in his sails because of this, and I just got caught with a shot. We talk about it all the time, don't we? Rationalising losses and kind of how you, but Barry, you say, boxers can be the best liars in the world, and you rationalise these things and allow yourself that, but it was this, and it's different now, and it's this. The Lopez one is difficult to to find a positive or to find a reason, but outside of I fought the wrong fight, but you're in there, you're the one who's boxing.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one.
And in a really hard world title fight, the chances are that at some point you will have to
You're
engage in the wrong kind of fight for a couple of rounds.
Particularly somebody
and if
like
that's,
that.
If that's what happens when you have to go into that particular hellhole, then that's a worry. And there was that footage, wasn't there, that BT, as they were at the time, picked up, which was, kind of great, but also quite traumatic viewing, where Michael's just come around, doesn't he? And Jamie's in the ring next to him. Michael basically says to him, "What happened?" And he just said, "You got knocked out, Michael. You fought the wrong fight," or something like that. But it's okay. And it's just like, you watch that and you just think, that's brother to brother in the ring. You've just watched that happen to them, and they were. I mean, I'm looking at all this stuff a lot recently, and that is a brutal moment where someone's just been chinned and they just come around. What happened? It's it doesn't get any worse than that almost.
Yeah. Andy bringing down the mood there on the boxing shows. He always does. No, he said,
you know what I mean?
No, it's true. Of course it's true. Of course it's true.
Andy.
Wow.
It also think
just shows you this. God, this is a serious business.
Yeah, it really does.
You just think of it though, as like I made a mistake. I bent over, I got caught with a shot. I wasn't looking or whatever, and that's where I look at that. Apart from that, I wasn't doing too bad. And that's how we rationalise it, and then move on. I just made a mistake, and I got caught against a guy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and punches from an orthodox angles, by the way. So like that movement would have worked normally. I just switched off for a second, and maybe all that's true, but that's how you rationalise it to yourself to carry on. And I think there might be life left in him there in the ring. He has the ability to do a lot of good stuff. But boxing doesn't work that way. Not always the best fighter wins. Not always the one with the most ability wins. That's the best fighter always wins. Not always one with the most ability wins. We've seen that time and time again. Lee Wood's a prime example of that. He has ability, obviously, but he's not the most gifted of fighters. But look what he's doing. It's tremendous, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. He beat Michael
Exactly.
Conlan, by the way. He's got more ability in his finger than most people who ever put a pair of gloves on.
Yeah.
This was an intriguing fight, but I see it as a. I gotta see honest, a comfortable win for Conlan.
I mean, and there's still, look, if Conlan gets the win, looks good in doing so, then there's still big fights there for him. If he down at featherweight, which I'm assuming he can still make pretty well. I know that I think the suggestion at the super featherweight was from Jordan Gill, obviously needing to move up. If he decides to go back down to featherweight, Conlan Warrington is such a big fight for fans. Like you could really do that.
Huge.
Conlan versus Lee Wood again would sell.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever Lee Wood decides to do, if it's Cordina, if it's this or that still sells. He could, let's say he beats Jordan Gill, could have a tick-over fight while Warrington and Cordina... Warrington and...
They're in a great position, those lads, aren't they?
So I mean, like, one win and you're back into it. Like, really?
Most of whom... some of whom are these massive ticket sellers. They could all just fight each other, just make a load of money.
When you consider Wood, Warrington, and Conlan
in the pot as well.
Wood, Warrington, and Conlan, they're the three biggest ticket sellers probably in that division.
Yeah.
And they've all got history, and they've all got little bits and pieces that can kind of make for a sellable
in a
fight.
Minute, Nick Ball might pick up a world title. Might. You know what I mean? He's next in shot, isn't he? Whoever has that title at the minute.
Be the winner of Vargas Figueroa,
yeah.
Vargas has got it at the minute, but he's got box.
I said that would be pedantic.
Okay, right. Let's move through a little bits and pieces from the rest of the card. We're going to start with
that word from you.
Kevin Agyarko against Troy Williamson, Andy, in a very interesting fight. We've seen Troy Williamson. Obviously, it was part of that kind of, I think probably with respect, sort of the back end of that sort of 154 glory period that we had for 2 or 3 years, but was involved in some really good fights. The Ted Cheeseman win was a brilliant win. Kevin Agyarko's kind of plodded along, I think, probably for the last 12 to 18 months, had some good rounds against some solid opponents, but this represents a good step up for him against a good name in Troy Williamson.
It does, and he's come down in weight, hasn't he, in recent times. He was at middleweight, now he's at super welterweight, so that's interesting because, that's £6, that's not an insignificant amount, and it's, having been at middleweight for as long as he was, and having turned over at middleweight, I was kind of a bit surprised by that. But I just feel like he's someone who has definitely not realised their potential yet, or kind of anything like. I've always been a bit of a fan. I watched him boxing WSB a while ago, and the first time I saw him, I was really impressed with him. And things haven't quite moved at the rate that he would have wanted them to. And he's changed his training setup as well, isn't he? He's with Joe McNally now, isn't he?
Yeah.
So there's been quite a lot of changes on his part, and this is a great fight for him, because Williamson, that was a really tough night in the end against Josh Kelly. That was a fight in which I thought he had a good chance. I thought he had a good chance, and people were asking questions of Kelly, and would he be able to win the kind of fight he would need to have, they felt, against Williamson after what happened against Avanesian, and he just answered them all, didn't he? He just answered every single question. So that was a tough one for Williamson, but it's a good fight, isn't it? I like it as a fight. I like it a lot, and I think if Aguiarco is going to go on and achieve certainly what he wants to, but if he can get to where I think he might be capable of getting to, then he's got to win.
Yeah, I think he came down a couple of fights ago from middleweight, and then his last fight, because he had the hand injury, didn't he? So he boxed at middleweight against Grant Dennis.
Yeah.
Boxed at middleweight, but I think the plan for him was to box for titles at light middle, super welter, whatever you want to call it. And this is a good opportunity for him to put himself in the title picture, not world title, but certainly around domestic and sort of fringe European level. Barry,
it is. Yeah, I think so. He doesn't box like Josh Kelly, but I think Josh Kelly showed how you have to fight someone like Williamson. Give Williamson a chance to get involved. He's a hard man to beat, but you give him a lot of movement. He followed Josh Kelly around the ring. He got mesmerised with the movement. Aguiarco doesn't box that way, and the worry is he tries to go right through Williamson, and that's going to be a hard night for him. I'm not saying you can't win that way, but that's a hard night. You've got to show a bit more guile. I think if you do that semicircle around Williamson, I think that's the way you beat him. You got to keep him constantly turning so he can't set up his shots, and I think he gets a little bit on his heels a bit, Williamson, and that'll give Aguiarco a bit more advantage. But Aguiarco likes to dig his shots in, and I think that he might get caught into a trap where it becomes a bit of a tussle. So it's how you set out in the fight. I think at one point Williamson will get him where he wants him, and Aguiarco will happily engage back. I think it'd be a good fight actually, but I think those early rounds you got to try and bank by just frustrating Williamson. Bit like what Josh Kelly did. Keep moving. Not going to do it that way, but keep moving. Plant your feet to land the combinations, then get out and then chase you, then look for you, because he doesn't really cut the ring off very good, Williamson. He follows you around. So it depends. Yeah, I fancy Aguiarco, but I'm not 100% sold. I think people are thinking Williamson's maybe haven't quite got it to get past the next level, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure about that. I think he potentially, the right opponent in front of him, he might surprise a few people. Because not long ago we were talking about Williamson, and we were talking about Aguiarco. It was it's all of a sudden a couple of performances, or he gets schooled by Josh Kelly, which is what happened in the end, unfortunately for him. And it's like one dimensional, which he is a little bit, but he can be better than that. Kelly's just the wrong style for him. Aguiarco might be the right style for him as it goes. But I still fancy Aguiarco to find a way to tough it out. I think there'd be some difficult rounds there for him, but I think his overall variety, better footwork, will get him over the line.
I'll stay with you, Barry. Tyrone McKenna versus Lewis Crocker. It's going to be a very interesting fight. I mean, Tyrone McKenna has interesting shadow spars, I'd imagine. A very entertaining fighter. But yeah, up against 17-0 Lewis Crocker this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a hard night, isn't it, for McKenna?
Yeah,
that is. It's just he's crowd pleasing, he's fun, and he's value for money because he gives his all. But he doesn't box like Ted Cheese. Remember, it's that sort of scenario, isn't it? Like, he's great to watch. He really is, and we always want to see him fight. But you got to, by one watching the fight, there's no empathy there. He's going to hate this, isn't he, McKenna? But he's good to watch, and he is good. And on his day, he can beat some good people. I just think time is everything in the sport, and getting Lewis Crocker now is totally wrong for McKenna. Because McKenna can be hit. I mean, he's willing to get hit to hit you. That's what's always made him entertaining, even when he was on a good run for a little while. But this is timing wise, this is not the fight for him.
and up at welterweight as well. Obviously, boxed his last fight at welterweight, but the shots are a little bit heavier up there at 147.
But no, Crocker's got to stand him. Crocker's got to start showing us a bit about Paddy Donovan. Then go, listen, I am your next. I'm the one now. I'm the one you got to start watching. So I think you got to plant this flag early and dominate McKenna. Because McKenna's tough and can grit it out. So you give him a little bit of you give him a bit of opportunity, give him a little bit of confidence, and then you find yourself in a really hard fight that you think it shouldn't be really. But I think Crocker will get it right, and I think he'll stop him late.
Andy, Barry just mentioned there about Lewis Crocker potentially wanting to follow in Paddy Donovan's footsteps. Give us something to be excited about at welterweight. Do you think he does that this weekend? Do you envision another, as Barry does, a comprehensive win for Lewis Crocker?
That's the plan, isn't it? That's what the script is here. Is make a match that's going to appeal to the punters, which this definitely does. A great fight for this card, and you know what McKenna will do. You know that he will come to fight. That he loves to tear up, and they will feel that he's the perfect opponent for Crocker to be in an entertaining fight and look good. And if he does what he can do, if he executes properly, then he is a really good fighter, Crocker, and you would have to pick him to win. I just really like McKenna, I always have. We spent a lot of time with him around the Golden Contract. He's good fun. 6'1" southpaw who can box, but having been persuaded by Pete Taylor to box against O'Hara Davis in the final of the Golden Contract and having not got the win via that method, although there was nothing in that fight, I didn't think. I know, because I've spoken to him, he decided after that, I am never doing that again. Ever. Because it was boring. And I don't want anyone to ever go away from one of my fights and think that was boring. That's who he is. And he'll take anyone. He took that fight against Regis Prograis. He will take anyone, and he will be bang up for this. And if Crocker isn't quite at it, or he's slightly lacking mineral-wise, then he will have a big problem with McKenna. So yeah, I'll be tuning in because it's you're guaranteed entertainment with McKenna, and that's what he wants to be. That's what he wants to be known for. How much longer he'll keep going does depend on whether he can pull off the odd win against someone like Crocker, or he will go too far down the bill and he won't get offered fights that really excite him. So he's not an away corner guy. He's boxing out of the away corner here, but he's not an away corner guy. He definitely still comes with ambition and feeling that he can win.
Which should make for a good spectacle. Also, Sean McCombs and Sam Maxwell this weekend in Belfast as well. Bit of a crossroads fight there. And the return of Ryan Garcia against Oscar Duarte on DAZN. But that's all we have time for today. We're going to go around and do our much vaunted predictions because we're really good at those. So we're going to start.
I swear not that long ago we were on quite a good run.
We were.
You know what you're talking about.
This last weekend, so we had
podcast,
we picked Chantel, Cameron, all of us.
Yeah.
We all picked Benavidez by stoppage late.
No, hang on a minute. They're letting us down, the fighters.
Yeah,
we're getting it right.
Do better.
Chantel should have won.
Do better. Better judging.
Do better, yeah.
Anyway, right. Andy, going to come to you first. Michael
bastards.
Conlan versus Jordan Gill.
I'll say Conlan points.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Michael Conlan
I was thinking as
by
well.
early stoppage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a bit of a. I just think he's going to be very sharp, and I do like. Sorry, Jordan. I do like both men. Nothing against either guy, but I do think that Conlan's sharpness early on will be a little bit too much for Gill, and I worry / I'm wondering where Jordan Gill's punch resistance is after the Karen Gurphy fight and the Kiko Martinez fight, and those first 3 or 4 rounds, Conlan will be very, very sharp.
I don't think Conlan will overcommit though.
Potentially not, and that's certainly a potential on the back of that Luis Alberto Lopez.
I can see what you're saying actually.
Yeah, I just think he might be a little bit too sharp early on. Tyron McKenna versus Lewis Crocker, Andy.
Crocker. I'll say Crocker
by way of
stoppage.
Yeah, and me.
Because I don't think McKenna wants to lose on points. I don't think he's interested in that. So I think he'll just keep throwing.
I know, so you say he's 6'2" southpaw, but he boxes like he's 5'7".
Yeah.
He commits to everything. I think he'll walk onto a shot clock. It's a really good time. I think that goes. I said late, but I think I'm actually maybe might go a little bit earlier.
Yeah, like 6 to 8 maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Lewis Crocker by stoppage. I do think it will go slightly later, so maybe around 7, 8, 9. Kevin Agyarko versus Troy Williamson. Andy.
I'll pick a Yarko points. Tough fight.
Yeah, I'm the same actually. Yeah, I think he wins wide, but it's never really comfortable.
I'll go for Agyarko stoppage in the second half of the fight. Been a bit bold this week.
You're loving it, aren't you?
Yeah, I think Williamson may struggle at 154 now. He's only made the weight once in his last 3 or 4 fights. One of his fights was at 168. Okay, it was only like a thing. It's also not that long ago that Mason Cartwright knocked him down and almost beat him as well at 54. I think Agyarko might have a little bit more in the tank. I think it'll be competitive for the first 4 or 5 rounds, and then I think Agyarko's fresh in the second half of the fight. That's what I think. And we haven't discussed it at all, so we're not going to do a Ryan Garcia and Oscar Duarte prediction, but that's a really good fight this weekend. One to definitely have a look at on DAZN. But yeah, that's all we have time for this week on The Boxing Show. Thank you, as always, to our esteemed panel of guests and Barry for joining us, and we will catch up with you next time.
I won't.